Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making the Best Use of Your Allocations Jupyter Notebooks webinar. Today's speaker, Mauricio Tavares, is a Linux and Network Systems Administrator at the Renaissance Computing Institute at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He is currently involved with Chameleon Cloud and Enter, enabling network research and the evolution of a next-generation mid-scale research infrastructure. Today's tutorial describes how to create an experiment using the Chameleon graphics interface in a reproducible and documented way. In this webinar, we will orchestrate an experiment from resource allocation to gathering and visualizing the results to tearing it down using Jupyter Notebooks. It will last about 45 minutes with time for questions at the end. During the presentation, please type general questions in the Q&A box. Members of the Chameleon team are on the webinar and will be answering your questions. Thank you and welcome, Mauricio.
Thank you. So the idea for this, the idea for this seminar or webinar is that usually when last webinar we talked about the intro to Chameleon, how to use this web interface for creating your servers and your experiment, your lab. But that was very time consuming and very like a clicky involved. So now we are going to show how to do it in a bit more automated way. And here. And not only automated, but very reproducible and in a way that your experiment is its own documentation. We're going to be using a Jupyter Notebook. If you never accessed it, you'd go to, let me show you how to access it. You go to ChameleonCloud.org. And here on the experiment, you hit Jupyter interface. And that will force you to do some login. And then once you log in, you should have a folder here on the side saying notebooks. You're going to click on that. And inside it, there's going to be a folder called tutorials and getting started. And then there's one here called Jupyter Orchestration. And that's the one we are going to be using. So as you see, we have here in the beginning, all these steps we're going to be doing on this experiment and some limitations. And you're going to see there is a field. This field here that has this blue line is a field that when you click on it here and you say run, it will run and then write something here. And that's the output for this field, because this field is actually a shell command. And underneath it, you're going to see the shell output. So next, we're going to, let's create a project. Here, I'm going to do this variable here is going to be an environmental variable. I'm going to call just maybe my Jupyter. And actually, the project we're going to be using is this one. So H1 6532, which should be the project you are using right now, 816532. And Okay. Actually, just actually, honestly, you don't need to worry about this because you are running your own separate project. And CH 813532. And you actually should be on CH 813532 already, so you should not have to change that. But next command we're going to do is just OpenStack heap list, which what it does, it shows a list of all the keys you are currently running. Clear output there. And this is how mine looks like. Yours could have just like a default key or nothing. And the region, you can leave your region as a default, or you can select a region as University of Chicago. If you want to select University of Chicago, you can uncomment this field and run it. I am already at the University of Chicago because it's actually the default. Now, use the diagram of the experiment we're going to create. We have we're going to here we are right here on the Jupyter Notebook server. We are going to connect to Chameleon automatically, and you're going to create two servers, left and right. And they are in a private network that's actually called ShareNet. And you're going to define a way how they can, the server called server name left can be accessed from the outside world. And then after that, we're going to do experiments. We will run a simple experiment that involves both servers. So continue to what we did before. We're going to define some more environmental variables. The reason why we're using that is that we can put them in one single location. And if you want to use this notebook for some other projects, we can just edit this and the rest of the notebook stays the same. So let's run it. Next, as we did before, using the normal Chameleon Cloud interface, we're going to create our leads, but instead of using the GUI, we're going to use a command line. You don't have to remember it because it's already here. All you have to do is let it run, and it's going to take that those variables we create, node type, list name, and everything else, and create it. As it's working, you're going to see that there's an asterisk here. Once the asterisk, while the asterisk is running, it's processing the command. Once it becomes a number, that means the command has been completed. Now, the next thing we should do is wait until the list is enabled before we continue. Right now, if we go to the Chameleon interface, we can see there's my list and it's active. So, and we should have no servers here. Yeah, none of so if you run this step, it's going to stay on this step until it realizes the lease has been successfully started, like it indicated here, and it's ready for business. At this point, you're going to receive an email saying that, oh, your lease has been created, how long it's going to last. We, instead of referring to the lease name, we can also refer to it as a lease ID. And since we're going to use the shared network, we're going to refer to it also using a network ID. And then we have to create a key pair. The key pair we're going to create is this one called Chameleon key, which I already have created. But if you don't have it created, all you have to do is go to this step here, and you're going to click here, and you're going to create a new key pair. And then you're going to run this other step here, which adds the key pair, the public key specifically, to Chameleon so you can use it. Since I already had done that, I will not do those two steps, but if you don't have a Chameleon key listed here on this step, you should run these two steps. Next step is like we did in the introduction to Chameleon, is create a floating IP and associate it to one of the servers, which in our case is going to be the left server. So we request a floating IP. That's the floating IP we're going to use. And then we're going to create the two bare metal servers. As this one's going to be called as the left server, the other is the right server. So, and both are bare metal and both are running CentOS 7. And both know about the key that the SSH key we just created. There's one server being created, and there's a second one, or initialized. Now we have to wait. When we're going to run this command here, you see that my two servers that are named after me, they have the status build. What we want them to be is like this, the status saying active. That's going to take a while. So what I did before, I had already created a server, and here it is. And I'm going to just make sure that I'm still on the same project. That's a project I'm using for my other server. Okay, so I'm going to change it here. As you see, if you belong to more than one project, sometimes you have to change that. So let me change it back here. And go back to, we are faking here. Pretend, you see I created my key. I added it. I created a server just as we saw before. But here, the servers are ready to go. Now we are going to, the next step, we are going to assign the floating IP to this server here, the left one, which I actually already have done it. And then we have to run this step here, this step, what it does is going to be connected to the SSH port on the left server until the port is up. So we run it and we wait. Okay. And just going to continue until so this is right. Yes. If you see this taking too long, you can just type I, and there it stops. And yes. Let's run this again. Let me see. Is there anything left? Is there anything right? Let's run this again. Okay. Let me do one quick test here. One of those quick things we can do here. Just one very quickly. As I said, each of those things is a shell command. So yes, and actually, let's just, that's a very easy way to test. Okay, still down. Well, we can do interesting things here too. We can just hang. Okay. Okay, now it's up. It's finally saying so. Up, all that means is that I can SSH into it. The servers have been up already. So now we're going to test the connection. What we're going to do, I'm going to tell this command. It's going to SSH the command to the left server, and it's going just to run password. And there it is. You see home SSH CC. That's a user that we're connecting as, and I can see the password. Not the password, but the path for that server. Now we're going to do the same thing to the right server. Okay, as you see, it also connects to the SSH port through the left server, and then saw that SSH connection to the right server is up. And then you're going to do the same command. You're going to check the root path for the user CC. Okay, so far so good. Now let's start making an experiment. The experiment, what we're going to do is run the program called Iperf. If you want more information about Iperf, you can just click on here, and you're going to go to the website for Iperf. So what we're going to do, we're going to install Iperf on the left server, then you're going to install on the right server as such. And then we are going to set the right server as the target, and you're going to use the left server, which is going to connect using Iperf to the right server. So first, we install Iperf. Okay. Okay, already installed. Good. Now we do that on the right server. And let's now set up the right server for listening to the traffic. And then I'm going to connect from the left server to the right server. And here's the output from that Iperf command, which it was output right into the Jupyter Notebook. So you could use this as your report, or you can just cut and paste this, or we could have modified this instead of just outputting here, we could have saved to a file. So any questions so far? Okay. The final steps we have is just deleting the lease, which first we have to delete both servers. Well, first we're going to delete the public IP. Not deleting, but releasing the public IP back to the pool. And now I'm going to delete both servers. and then delete the list itself. So or if you look back into the Jupyter Notebook, we have here outlined all the steps we did. And if you had to document, exactly what we did, we can show. We run this command, got this output. We run this test here and got these results using these specific tests. And we can, if you want, we can run. We could run it again, make some change, as you saw me making changes on the fly, and just run it again, and then see how does that affect the outcome of our tests. So well, I don't know. I can wait here for, if you have any more questions, we can go over this again. Any of the steps you want, but.
All right, are there any questions? Anyone that wants to ask a question live, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, you can put a question in the Q&A box if you're more comfortable that way. All right, well, if we don't have any questions, I just want to thank Mauricio for presenting this talk today. We appreciate your time and also that of our attendees. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.